Hello, welcome back to Create a Third Eye. I have been asked by several people about Illustrator. They may not have used it in a while, so they are kind of rusty. And once you get back into it, I tell people you start to feel it and get used to it. But for people who are still struggling with it, I tell them that there's a quick way to do it, and the pen tool is the usual way. But I tell everyone if you have this and this, a Wacom tablet or another digitizing tablet with a pen that has multiple tip pressures that also works just as well for you. You can do it with a mouse, but it may be a little bit more chunkier or clunkier, more not chunkier. Well, the lines could be chunky, and that's not fun, and that's a pain in the butt. I just say redo it. But if you have a little bit of time, you will have to finesse it and clean it up a little bit more because your hand movement with this cannot possibly match the same way as you're drawing with a pen. If you have tried to sign your name with a mouse, you know what I'm talking about. With this, it just is fluid. So on that note, what I do is I set up my pen tool and I double click the pen tool to get my options. So fidelity, accuracy, and smoothness. I push it over to the right and you go to the maximum. Also, edit selected path within width. I kind of like keep it not in the middle, but closer to a lower digit. And you will see why. But you could probably leave it in the middle. But like I said, always play with this. And I find that it smooths out the curves of your line. So on that note, what I'm going to do is start with a neckline and I'm going to draw the armhole and then I'm going to make the hemline. So starting from the shoulder, I'm going to curve around an arc to kind of like the center front of this croquis. So I just sweep like that and I stop. And I may have, I'm going to zoom in, a little extra point. And that's why I said it goes super fast. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to go back to my pencil, readjust it. I'm going to bring it down to even slower to 2 pixels. And I'm going to do that action one more time. And a little bit faster. And then I'm going to take the white arrow and I'm going to click on this line and it will show you that there's a few anchor points inside. And that will be just a cleanup of removing those anchor points. So I'm going to delete that, go back to this. I'm going to push it all the way to the maximum smoothness. And do that line one more time. Take the white arrow. And now I just have one anchor point. But I'm trying to remove these anchor points inside the neck because they can be in the way. So I'm going to bring this down to 0 pixels. And let's try it again. We got a curve. We still have an extra anchor point. We'll move this away. And I'm going to take the mouse. Do the same thing. And see, it's just a little bit harder with the mouse. This is slight. We got one extra anchor point. But it's not too bad, and it's very manageable. So I'm just going to remove this one. Let me delete that. So I have my neckline, and I tell people, no matter what you do in Illustrator, it is just about 70% is drawing, and then the 30% is going back, fine tuning, and fixing all the little small details of the curvature, of the shape, of your line weight. So I'm going to do the pencil again for the armhole. I'm going to follow this dotted line. Very smooth. And I noticed that it gave me an extra little point. So I can just select that and hit delete. And that will clean up. And the best part about it, it actually worked better. There is no extra anchor point, but I do have my handles, which let me control the curve of my arc, which is what I want. And the same thing goes for this. So if you do have an extra one, go to your pen tool, delete that anchor point. It caused the curve to jump away. Pull your handles back out. Hold shift. For this one, I recommend holding shift because you want this one at a 90-degree angle. That way you get a nice curve. And I'm going to go down, Facebar. I'm going to do a little sweep to the bottom of the t-shirt. There we have it. And I'm going to make sure this moves over with the right arrow. Bring this up. Press the shift key. Make sure it locks at 90 degrees. Not this way. Wrong way. Swing it back. And now what I'm going to do is with the lasso, I'm going to lasso this endpoint and the shoulder endpoint and right click and say join, which gives me my shoulder line. And I'm going to do the same here. Join. And if you need to add an extra curve to it, if you're using the newest Illustrator, you now have control of the anchor point tool, which they used to be a long time ago called the converter. I still call it the converter. You're going to take it and bend your line for a little shape to the body. If you're on an old Illustrator, and I love the CS6, you can do plus, add an anchor point, pull it over. It is at a sharp angle. You can go to the anchor point tool, go to the anchor point, pull, and be careful which way you're turning it. Make sure you're turning it and pulling it vertical or going down, but still vertical to get a nice curve to your shape. Also, there is a smooth anchor point setting, and this is also in CS6. Right here, up here, you have settings to press, and it will give you a nice curve. And like I said, once you have your shape, then the 30% you take to adjust and pull your handles and smooth out your shape of your neck. Bring that up for a little crew neck. Get a nice curve to it. same thing goes here. You can angle that, and you have your bodice, your block for your t-shirt. I wouldn't join here because I need a mirror image of this on the other side, and I don't want a seam here. So what I do is I can reflect it, transform, reflect. I'm going to say vertical because it flipped upside down, vertical, 9 degrees, and then copy. But like I said, hit preview just to make sure, because like I said, it may flip upside down, just to be sure. Say copy. The only thing about copying this way is you got to move it over, and holding the shift key makes it slide exactly over so it's balanced. Because if you move it without the shift key, you may have to sit here and try to match up those lines. So what I do is slide it over, but even before that, I go to the reflect tool, which is this one, the mirror image of the triangle. I select what I want to reflect. Select the top, go to the reflect, and I'm going to use, there's the little reflect icon. It's in the middle, so it's flipping here. I'm going to tell it to flip here like a book and fold open. So I'm going to click here, hold down, and I'm going to press the Option key as I click. And you can see it jumped over there. I'm going to hit Preview. Then you say Copy. You have your mirror image. And I'm going to zoom in, and you can see. And you got a little gap. Don't move it. Don't even try to move this over, because when you move it over, you're going to move the shape over a little bit too much. So what I do is I take the lasso, just like I did join, but before I say join, I surround these two anchor points, right click, average, I'm going to say both, it brings them together. Then I'm going to right click one more time, the second right click, join. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and let's look at the hem. It looks like it's joined, but it didn't join. It's still two parts. So if I have something like this, surround it, average, it's going to find the middle, vertical, and bring them together. And then I would say join. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this way. Average. Even though I think I don't need to, I always do it. Don't trust your eye. Now you have two lines that are closed and joined together, and now they act as one line. So if I pull this down, or this line comes down, at the same time this line comes down, and they're moving in sync and in unison to change the neckline. So that is starting the sketch. Same thing goes with the sleeve. The sleeve is a cylinder shape, which is a rectangle. You just have to have a curve for your armhole. So it's almost if you take a square and rotate it. I'm using the black arrow. I could use the rotate tool, and I will pivot and do this. And then I will adjust with the white arrow my anchor points. So I'm using the rectangle for a little bit of a design purpose. And I'm going to bend this to match the armhole. The only thing about the sleeve is so square and boxy, you want to always show a little bit more movement and contour to the body. So I always round out the shoulder. I can go here, push this out a little bit, give it a slight curve and fit. And you can even curve here for the sleeve. Especially if you have a knit top and now you have these handles. I'm going to pull this out so it wraps around her arm. And the same thing here. I can have this kind of like curve. Oop, too much curve, sorry. Find that anchor point, move it over. So this is a knit top. You have a little bit more shape to it. And if you're doing a full sleeve on a shirt, you have a little bit more fullness and shaping to it at the bottom if you have a cuff design. So that is using the pencil to start your shape. And I'm going to next go to a photograph or a tracing as an illustration for another way of tracing.